Kristie, please introduce yourself to my class.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Kristie Kassmier. I am a mom. I'm a business owner. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time because my 5-year-old is here at the house with me. So if we have any pop-ins, you may get to see our youngest. His name's Wyatt. He's oftentimes my coworker, my partner in crime. He goes to preschool 3 days a week. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking me to speak with you all today. Give me one quick second. He's actually calling me. I'm so sorry. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Timing is always great with little ones around.
Young ones. So
I apologize.
not a problem. Did you hear what happened to Wendy last week?
I did. I talked to her. She said she had to cut it short. She had a coughing spell.
Well, cut it short wasn't even to begin. Anyway, so where did you go to school?
Sure. I grew up in Fayette County, so I am a Laurel Highlands graduate. I graduated
and we will not hold that against you.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. I grew up on a farm, so I have an agriculture background, which has certainly played into my career as well. But after high school, I went locally. I went to California University of Pennsylvania. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I went as a freshman, enrolled in education, elementary education. And my freshman year, I took, similar to a lot of freshmen, some general education classes, but I also took a graphic design class and really loved it. And kind of translated that into the way that I grew up in agriculture. And then I found this new interest in graphics, and was able to change my major. And I'm very much a type A planner. So that, for me to kind of make that leap, that wasn't really necessarily what I was expecting, but I really fell in love with it. So I guess the lesson there is, you may think you know what you want to do, and just because you're kind of going down that path and something else sparks your interest, don't be afraid to follow that, especially kind of when you're early in college, when you have time to explore and see what you're interested in, and it may not be what you thought. That's certainly how it turned out for me.
So how long have you owned your business?
So I owned my business. I graduated from college in 2006 from Cal U, and 2 weeks later, I actually moved to Harrisburg. We packed up everything in a cattle trailer, no less, and moved to the city, literally downtown Harrisburg. I lived in downtown Harrisburg. So I worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture for 4 years, lived in Harrisburg. 4 years following that, I worked for the Pennsylvania Beef Council, and that was interesting because I moved to State College, and I was able to work from home, which was awesome. And obviously, this was pre-pandemic. That's kind of that's more common now, post-pandemic. And it was nice because a lot of my work was travel. It involved a lot of travel. For the Pennsylvania Beef Council, our kind of national organization was based out of Denver, Colorado. So I traveled every couple of months out to Denver, down to Nashville, Florida. And I was based in the center of the state. So when I had to travel within Pennsylvania, it was great because I could kind of get anywhere I needed to go within a couple of hours. Following the Pennsylvania Beef Council, my husband and I, we got married when we lived in State College. We had our oldest son there. And shortly after we had him, he's 7 now, he'll be 8 in January. Steve actually was one of your students, Mr. Nettle, and he went to AG. So half of our, family were AG grads. So, and now our kids go to Uniontown. So we kind of have all our bases covered within Fayette County. But once we had our oldest son, we both obviously grew up in the area. We knew we wanted to come back home. And as I mentioned, the job at the Beef Council, I loved it. It was so much fun, but it was not necessarily the best fit for a young mom, a young family. So when we came back home, we made the decision together that I was going to kind of step back from, working full time. Kind of in the meantime, I started doing some social media, some digital media design work on the side. Kind of thinking that this might be an opportunity. You guys have probably heard the side hustle. I was doing some side hustle work there in terms of graphics, digital, that sort of thing, and was able to translate that into a full-time career after our second son was born in 2016. So I stopped working full-time in October of 2016. Our youngest son was born 10 days later. I took the rest of the year off, and then I officially launched Kassmier, which is the company that I own and operate now, in January of 2017.
So backing up a little bit. So,
Yep.
And this is the interesting part of the story. Her husband went to Worcester in Ohio, got a regular job at Penn State. She is out there already. You guys didn't know each other beforehand, did you?
No, we didn't know. Actually, my oldest brother is a football coach, and I have 2 older brothers. My oldest brother recruited Steve to play football at the College of Worcester. So we were a year apart. I graduated from LH in 2002. He graduated from AG in 2003. So we never really knew each other, while we were in school, while we were in college, anything like that. So we met through the College of Worcester, through my brother, which is weird, but worked out fine. And yeah, so Steve was in Worcester, Ohio. So there was a time frame where when we were first together, I was in Harrisburg, he was in Worcester, and then he found a job after his grad assistantship in State College, Pennsylvania. And at that time, my first job, as I mentioned, was with the Department of Agriculture, and there was an administration change kind of impending. Governor Rendell was about to, and oftentimes when that happens, they bring a new team in. I was in a position that probably wouldn't have necessarily affected me. They actually called me the day that my moving van was to take my things from Harrisburg to State College. They called and asked if I would interview for a position with the new administration, to which I said, absolutely. I think you always take the interview, even if in your mind that might not be what you want to do. You never know what a conversation with that person may lead to down the road. And they knew that I was leaving. They knew I was moving. I was likely, my fiance at the time was in State College. That's kind of where I was going to settle for a while. But, it's kind of the idea of always put yourself in a position to say no. And if those opportunities come up, take them. And it's always great to practice interviewing, whether it's your dream job, whether it's a transitional job. For me, it just didn't fit into, I kind of had to make the choice of that job would have been, more money, but I was ready to move forward with my personal life. And I don't regret that decision, but I'm glad I had the meeting. because I kept that connection, and that helped later on into some of these other opportunities that have come along.
So I've told these guys that it's also very beneficial to let people know what you're interested in or what your hobbies are in, stuff like that. A birdie told me that you were once Fayette County Fair Queen.
Yeah, that birdie was right. Yes. And I will say, we sort of joke about it. As I said, I grew up on a farm, so I was in 4-H for 10, 11 years. And I always said I showed market steers, so cattle, pigs, and lambs. And the way that it worked out age-wise, I always said, as long as I was showing in 4-H, quite honestly, I didn't have time. We were busy. I was never going to run for Fair Queen. That wasn't I grew up with older brothers on a farm. We talked about sports or cattle at the dinner table. I was a tomboy growing up. So being a fair, the crown and all the things, that's not necessarily where my interests were, but it 100% laid the foundation for my career path, because I was done with 4-H. I had 1 year age eligibility left. So I ran for Fair Queen. I was lucky enough to win. At the county level, then you're given an opportunity to go participate in a state competition. And this it's very different from, what you might see the beauty queens and, Miss America, the pageants. It's very much, you write an essay, you do a speech, you do an interview process. They want you to have an agricultural background. And I was then very much, blessed to win that competition. And I represented Pennsylvania in 2005. I traveled all over. I think that year we traveled over 10,000 miles across the state of Pennsylvania, visiting other fairs, meeting with state officials, Department of Agriculture officials. Fast forward to May of 2006, and I ended up with a job 2 weeks out of college with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And that in large part was because of the Fair Queen program. So it might sound kind of silly and funny, but sometimes those opportunities, you never know where they're going to lead you.
And when you meet her, she wears the sashes everywhere she goes.
I wear it everywhere I go. I 100% don't wear it anywhere I go. But no, it has. We kind of joke about it, but it certainly helped prepare me in terms of leadership qualities and public speaking, interviewing. It definitely, and putting me in the path with the right people to again help advance my career down the road, for sure.
So what made you want to create or start your own business? Is it something you always wanted to do, or did you do it because of the boys?
It never crossed my mind that I would be a business owner, to be very honest with you. Never crossed my mind. I mean, I wanted to figure out a way, I guess, to balance. I like to work. I love being a mom, and I did step back and take time to spend more time at home with the kids. To this day, our youngest is 5 and he'll go to kindergarten next year. I say I don't work full time. I don't have a 40-hour-a-week job, one job that I go to. I have multiple jobs that I do that add up to what I would consider a full-time job, but it also provides the flexibility to allow me to kind of figure out that work-life balance, that working mom balance. And quite honestly, working is something for me. I have the utmost respect for stay-at-home moms. It is not easy. And continuing to work is just something that I enjoy doing. It keeps me sane. So I guess starting a business was sort of the answer. I didn't even realize at the time. I just started it started by helping the Fayette County Fair. They needed some help with their social media and asked if I would be interested in doing that. And I kind of did it on the side. And then that translated into some other opportunities. for a local attorney that my mom worked for. She needed help with her website and some public relations and marketing projects. So I was able to kind of put enough of those smaller projects together that then let me feel confident enough to sort of take the leap and say, okay, I'm going to brand this. And I'm going to pursue, other opportunities that allow me to operate under the name of my company is Kassmier. Primarily, the contracts that I have, the folks that I work with, I hate the word client because I feel like, they're very personal projects. I choose projects and it hasn't always been that way. When I first started, I didn't really say no to anything, even if it wasn't my favorite project or didn't quite fit the bill of, I really enjoy working in agriculture, obviously, public service, local government. That's been something that I've enjoyed doing and the folks that I've worked with, it's just kind of led down that path. But in the very beginning, what you would call maybe a startup company, I didn't say no to much of anything, just because you need the income, you need to be able to kind of build your brand and get to a point where now, almost 5 years later, I sort of have the ability where I can kind of pick and choose, projects, maybe larger projects, and concentrate on those that again afford me that flexibility to be able to help my family, to take care of our kiddos and get them, to baseball, soccer, whatever it may be, and still be able to work. With that flexibility, I will say it is not I don't have a 9-to-5 job, a 5-day-a-week 9-to-5 job. It is, I'm always available, especially in something like public relations and outreach. You sort of always make yourself available to the folks that you're working with, because you never know what's going to come up in terms of crisis management or, media requests, whatever it may be. Those filter in 24/7. So flexibility is great, but that balances with, it's not your typical work week, I guess.
So you are the company. It's just you, correct?
It's just, so it is just me. I have, what I would call subcontract out more recently. The Fayette County Fair is a great example. So this past summer, again, when I was talking about earlier, interviewing for that job that I knew that I wasn't going to take, but still kind of having those conversations, that was in, let me think, 2010. Okay, so a decade ago, right? And the gentleman that worked at the Department of Agriculture at that time is the current Secretary of Agriculture, the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture. And I had an opportunity within the past year that came up, that they reached out to see if I would be interested in serving on the Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board. There's a lot to explain about that. I won't go into the details, but I will say that relationship that I made 10 years ago, just sitting down and having that conversation, working for that gentleman, he since left the Department of Agriculture. He came back. I obviously moved on, but we've come back together, and he was a key factor in helping me get into this position, which is considered a full-time state government office, but I can do it from home. It requires me to travel to Harrisburg maybe once a month if necessary. And again, it's kind of in that state government, local government wheelhouse that I really have a lot of interest in. And that opportunity has allowed me to really kind of zone in on the contracts, maybe those larger contracts that I can put more time and effort into and grow those, as opposed to maybe some of the 5 or 6 smaller ones that are more busy work and take a lot of time that I just don't have. And I am very much a type A personality. So I like to do the work. I love working with people. And in this position, or in the instance of the Fayette County Fair contract, I knew that eventually I was going to step away from that. and that it was coming soon. Probably within maybe a year ago, I started to foresee that, because my kids are getting to 4-H age, and to be able to do that and work for the fair, it just doesn't, the time isn't there. So I kind of kept my eye out for someone who might fit the bill. And sure enough, her name is Jamie. She's actually an agriculture teacher. So she has summers off, and she does some social media work on the side. So I subcontracted her out this year to help me with the fair, and she's eventually going to take over that contract.
Okay.
And that also allowed me to, she was in a position where I was 5 years ago, and she's starting her own business. So we've been able to kind of sit down, and I will never sit here and tell you that the way that I've done it is 100% right or would work for everybody. I'm happy always to sit down and talk with someone to say, this is what's worked for me. And now she's been able to expand her own business and kind of brand it and create her own little side hustle, if you will.
Okay.
Which is almost more rewarding, or as rewarding as, having the contract yourself, is to be able to help another, small business owner or someone who is has that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, who wants to do something like that, and be able to kind of help them get started.
So with your own business,
Yes.
excuse me, the whole finance part of it and setting up all this stuff, were you trained to do that? Or is it something that you learned or you found somebody to help you with?
Yes. So no, I am not. I always said, you're either a math person or like a reading person, kind of, and I am not a math person. I'm not super financially savvy in that regard. So I had to find help, and put myself in a room with folks who are very savvy in terms of, setting up whatever financial plan that you need for a business. And so I just started asking a lot of questions. Your wife actually has been a huge help with that. She worked, Muriel, in the Gals at the Chamber. I actually do some work for the Fayette Chamber, but I guess kind of the other thing that I would say that has been a tremendous help to me, and I think anybody in your career, is relationship building, networking, having good communication skills, where you can have a conversation with someone and, and be able to say, I could use some help here. This isn't necessarily my area of expertise. How can you help me, figure this out? And kind of pulling the ego out of it, and figuring out the best option that oftentimes then ends up being mutually beneficial for folks. And one of my most favorite things that I love to do now, as a small business owner, is partner with other small business owners. There's another gal who works at the Fayette Chamber. She and I have done website projects together. She kind of builds the website. I do the project management. It works really, really well. And that kind of came together because I was doing some work for the chamber. She knew the chamber. These things sort of just organically happen sometimes when you put yourself in a position of being able to communicate and looking for opportunities to build those relationships. That's how it's worked out for me.
So I can go so many different directions, Chris.
Yeah, I have a lot of balls in the air. I wear a lot of hats.
You do have a lot of balls in the air, and being able to do that, plus with the two boys, is amazing to me. So when you work with people, if someone calls you and you can't do the work,
right?
Do you find someone for them to do the work for them? Or do you just give them a list of names here? This is who I know can do this because I've worked with them in the past.
I think it depends on the scenario. So very early on, again, when I started the business, I really tried to say, I tried not to say no if I could do it. The other interesting part of contract work that I've learned, one of the first things people will ask me, which I would too, if you're looking for a service, if you're looking to pay for something, is what do you charge? And that's a hard question to answer, especially when you're first starting out, because everybody has a different budget. I don't want to say no to people. I'm in a position where I'm trying to build my brand, to build my reputation. So would I love to make more money on this? Sure. But what's more important at the time? Being able to do a project that at the end of the day may not pay as much, but it's going to give you a great referral.
Right.
It's going to lead you to your next business opportunity, because quite honestly, I don't advertise. I don't spend a ton of money. I have a Facebook page for my company, working through, a website. And again, it's awesome because I work very closely with someone who builds websites. So we're able to kind of trade trade services, if you will. And I give her great recommendations. Maybe this will help answer your question. I have had people say, hey, can you build me a website? I cannot physically build you a website. That's not what I do. And so if it made sense for, her name's Wendy, for Wendy and I to work on the project together, great. Because Wendy doesn't like to work with the content, writing the content, editing the content, dealing with the client necessarily. So we work great together. I manage that part of it. She builds the website, and it's a great partnership. Go ahead, buddy. But it just kind of depends. There have also been instances where someone would say, I just have a website that I want it updated, and there's not really a need for me. So I absolutely pass that off to Wendy and recommend her, because one, I've worked with her. I know her quality of work, and it's going to help her as well, which ultimately I think always kind of comes back to you.
Because you've contacted me, it's 2 years now, hard to believe, to do work through the county.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it was right as COVID was hitting, because we did with the commission.
The video.
And I also walked through the county jail a week before they got infected.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But see, my issue is, because the side hustle, as you call it, I feel guilty for charging money. Which is one of those things that I have done so much work over the years that I do it for free.
Sure.
And it's one of those things, and not to build credibility, it's just what it is.
Right.
However, you working with these organizations, how many organizations are you working with right now? How many clients do you have? I hate to use the term too.
Right. No, that's okay. So right now I work with, so I serve on the milk marketing board. So that's kind of a separate job. That's not necessarily Kassmier media related. That's more Kristie. But I work for, I manage the Fayette County PR initiative. So I work very closely with the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, the Fayette County Commissioners, and the Redstone Foundation. So I would say that's kind of one big project. Although it involves multiple people, multiple entities that kind of overlap. And then I also have the Fayette Living Well Coalition, which again involves a lot of the people, but that's a separate contract. The Fayette County Fair. So I would say three major clients or projects, if you will, and then the milk marketing board as well.
So a lot of people say that there's no work in Fayette County. Is there work for someone that does what you do in this county?
I think that, I don't know how I would have answered that maybe pre-pandemic, because I think that really COVID kind of turned everything on its head. And I think our workforce looks very different. What I do, I would say, I mean, for me, this was not my primary source of work when I first started out, no.
Okay.
But I do think that there are areas of marketing and public relations that you could 100% do this on your own. I don't know if you could do it right away. That might be something that you would need to work into, that you would need to build. But absolutely, do I think that it's possible? Do I think that there's a need for it? Digitally, social media, 1000%. I do.
So we talked about, you mentioned going to Cal for
Mhm.
your degree. Now, what did you eventually get your degree in?
So I have a bachelor's degree and it's called graphic communications technology.
Okay.
So it was graphic communications, graphic design. So it concentrated. I learned a lot about the printing side of things too, printing and publishing. But I concentrated more on the creative part of that, I guess. Which then my first job at the Department of Agriculture was in the press office, so the newsroom essentially for agriculture, for the State Department of Agriculture.
So when did you pick up the marketing component of what you do?
Sure. So during my time at the Department of Ag, as I said, I started in the press office, the newsroom, but there are different areas. They call them bureaus, and one is called the Bureau of Market Development.
Okay.
And so that is where I worked with several fairs. So again, going back to the Fayette County Fair, fairs across the state. Think about when you go to the Fayette County Fair and you see, oh, there's a new restroom here. The money has to come from somewhere for projects like that. They call them capital improvement projects, and the state provides funding for that. My job there was to oversee those grant opportunities, that grant funding. So at one time, that was a $3.4 million budget. Thank goodness I was naive enough to not really know what that meant. And thank goodness for Excel spreadsheets back then, because looking at it now, a 20-some-year-old right out of college is overseeing a $3.4 million grant program. But I also had really great mentors that helped me through that process. So I would say that is sort of my first experience in terms of marketing. They also have a branded program called the PA Preferred Program, which promotes locally sourced products. So think farmers markets, local farmers going and selling their products. If they are grown and sourced and sold in Pennsylvania, you can use that Department of Agriculture brand to help market your product. So I also worked in the PA Preferred office. So that kind of gave me more experience in commodity marketing, commodity food marketing. And then that led into my job with the Beef Council. So beef, think of beef cows, meat. And my job, I went from the Department of Ag to become the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Beef Council. So I just kind of kept building that marketing piece in each position that I took after that first job in the press office.
Because when I look back at what I did a long time ago when I got my first degree, and mine's a Bachelor of Communications in radio broadcasting, which is now a radio and TV broadcasting, which changed to communications in electronic media, and then went to digital media, so on and so forth. We had a marketing component in what we did. Okay. Do you, being an old dog trying to teach new tricks, it's very difficult. But when we tried to do any marketing, we were not specialized enough to do that. Now, you feel that you are specialized to cover everything, or are you just working with digital in print media?
So I would say I do some digital and print media, working with, news stations, setting up media interviews.
Okay.
I would say today that if you would ask the large portion of my work, like what I concentrate on, it would fall more under public relations.
Okay.
So, which kind of goes hand in hand with marketing. So it's more public relations, more sort of crafting the image of how something is going to be perceived, or how we want it to be perceived by media, by the general public. I think that's in today probably the large portion of what my work is concentrated in, is public relations.
Because when you talk about marketing, there is so much difference
Yes.
is to go into marketing, and there's so many different types. Now, you're doing marketing or PR on a larger level, not for a product, but for an
Right.
organization.
For the county, yes.
Is it
Yes.
difficult to work on, to market for a county than it is for a business? Because you're dealing with a lot of things with the county.
Sure. I would say it is more difficult in terms of maybe satisfying the audience, because there are so many unknowns. You have no idea what you can sort of focus in on the message that you want to portray, but you can never really control how that message is received.
Okay.
So the best thing that you can do is we do a lot of forward thinking, how we think it's going to be perceived, how previous stories that we've done have been perceived. I can tell you, for example, I knew, Veterans Day was last week. We always try to do a piece related to Veterans Day. Stories like that get a ton of positive feedback because they're very personal. So we have learned that people obviously connect well with personal stories. So when we see that happening, we run with it. We try to build more of that kind of content into our planning, and we plan by the quarter. I'm speaking specific to the Fayette County PR initiative.
Right.
But yeah, and backtrack a little bit. I know some of this, and a lot of your students I know are obviously very aware of COVID and perhaps the vaccination clinics that the county initiated earlier this spring. I remember when I first sat down to build out this contract, and you kind of put pieces in there on, what you'll do, some of your deliverables, if you will,
Right.
the services that you'll be able to provide. And we did put in there, because when you're dealing with the media, you always have to be prepared to deal with maybe crisis management to a certain degree, a bad story that's going to come out. How are you going to, bury the bad and elevate the good?
Right.
No one could have ever prepared us for COVID. And so, but the beauty in that is when you can't plan for something like that, it challenges you to be creative, to kind of step outside, maybe shakes things up a little, and ultimately makes you better, made us better for it in the end. We were able to create a completely original United Fayette campaign around the pandemic and see people from all across Fayette County, people's family members that are maybe from Fayette County, or they have a connection to Fayette County, reaching beyond county lines, state lines, international lines to be part of this movement, if you will, and then being able to help promote the vaccination clinics, and having WTAE calling us to say, hey, we want to come cover your clinics, that's a huge deal. And it's taken a while. We launched the PR initiative in very late 2017, probably fair to say 2018. And, we're now to the point where we have some of these, big time reporters on speed dial. but it takes time to sort of, especially when you're building something. The PR initiative, I didn't come in and take over. Myself, Muriel from the chamber, the county commissioners, we built this. We have a couple of journalists that work with us. We built it from the ground up. We built it from nothing. So the nice part in that is, well, it's kind of hard to fail because there's kind of no benchmark, but it's also hard to succeed or know how to measure your success because there's no benchmark. So we really had to kind of build it and establish those benchmarks.
The interesting thing about the whole vaccination clinic was that was an idea on a Sunday, and that was put together by the end of the week. And that program for you guys became a model for other counties in the state of Pennsylvania, because they were working with a hospital, the business community and everything else, which again, what they were able to pull off was amazing in such short period of time. These guys have to go in about 5 minutes.
Sure.
You were doing the PR initiative in Fayette County.
Mm-hmm.
Are you marketing to the people in this room, or are you marketing to people from outside the county?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So we want to build community, obviously, and we're hoping the people in the room, the people within the county, of course, there's always, I guess, speaking personally, I always knew, especially when I ended up marrying someone from here, we realized very quickly that we wanted to come back home to raise our family because our families were here. To be very honest with you, it would have been easier for us to stay in State College in terms of maybe financially. We both had really good jobs there. State College is a really fun, great place to live. They've got great schools, but it was important for us to come home and kind of create, it took time to find jobs back here and then kind of create that success, but you can absolutely do it. And I will say, from the time I came back until now, I think there are even more opportunities. Yeah, buddy. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
I think there are opportunities, but I do think, we're in a situation, especially post-pandemic, where, you have to get creative and maybe kind of make some of those opportunities, and you have to work really, really hard.
So what is one of the positive things, because everything you're doing is a positive initiative for the county. What is one of the positive things you're working on right now?
So right now we are probably, what's taken up a good portion of our time lately is the Blue Zones project. It's funny, I have it sitting right here because I have a call about this next, but it is a health and wellness initiative. It is based off a National Geographic writer. Oh, sorry, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had a Hot Wheels car incident. We're okay. No, it's a health and wellness initiative that our county health rankings in Fayette compared to the rest of the state aren't super great. So this is a project that is worldwide. It's known worldwide. This gentleman traveled all over the world to find the places that people are living the longest, and not just living the longest, but having quality life, and figured out what factors were contributing to that. In the United States, there are now 42 Blue Zones communities. And Fayette County is in the process of potentially becoming a Blue Zones community. And what's interesting is a lot of these are from a local, like a town or a city perspective, and we're doing it from a county. So it's exciting.
Kristie, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
For screaming out of the room.
No, it's okay. I get it. I remember when the bell rang.
It's the end of the day, so thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you so much.